All right. Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and kick off with a language justice statement.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Hola a todos, a todas y a todos. Buenas tardes. My name is Valentina, and I'm here with my colleague Maria. We're both here on behalf of Community Language Cooperative, and we are here to provide and guarantee your commitment to language justice. Language justice is a type of simultaneous interpretation that seeks to create spaces in which no one language is dominant, spaces in which everyone can participate in the language of their heart. So, to achieve this objective, we'll be using Zoom's interpretation feature. What you will see in a couple of minutes is that a new little button that looks like a globe will appear on the bottom bar of your screen, on that same bar where you currently have the buttons for the microphone, for the video, for the chat, etc. Once you see this new little button come up, go ahead and click on it and select either English or Spanish as both the language that you will be listening into and speaking into. If you are joining the meeting on a phone or on a tablet, you will find the same options for interpretation by clicking on the button with the three little dots on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. This button reads more. Hola nuevamente, mi nombre es Valentina y estoy aquí con mi colega María, ambas por parte de Community Language Cooperative y estamos aquí para ofrecerles y garantizar su compromiso con la justicia del lenguaje. La justicia del lenguaje es un tipo de interpretación simultánea que busca crear espacios en los que no dominen ningún idioma, espacios en los que todos puedan participar en el idioma de su corazón. Para lograr este objetivo vamos a utilizar la función de interpretación de Zoom. Lo que verán en un par de minutitos es que aparece un nuevo botón, que aparece un globo terráqueo en la barra inferior de su pantalla. En esa misma barra, donde ahorita están los botones para el micrófono, para el video, para el chat, etcétera. Va a estar hacia su mano derecha. Cuando vean este botoncito aparecer, hagan clic en él y seleccionen inglés o español como el idioma en el que desean escuchar y participar. Si usted está en esta sesión por medio de una tableta o de un teléfono, encontrará las mismas opciones para la interpretación haciendo clic en el botón que tiene tres puntitos en la esquina inferior derecha de su pantalla. Este botoncito dice More o Más. A quick reminder for those of you that do prefer to use English during this meeting, Spanish is 20 to 25% longer than English, so please be aware of your speed. If you have any questions or any issues whatsoever with this technology, please let the whole group know by means of the chat box so that we can work together to address them. Un breve recordatorio es que la interpretación es simultánea, entonces cuando participe mantenga un ritmo de conversación. Si tiene alguna pregunta o algún problema para con esta tecnología, por favor comuníquese al grupo completo a través del chat para que lo podamos resolver en conjunto. Muchas gracias por tenernos por acá. Podemos empezar ahora. Thank you so much for having us here. We can go ahead and start the interpretation channels now.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Valentina and Maria Elisa. We so appreciate having you here tonight. So, my name is, well, before welcome, my name is Rachel Zarowin, and I work for the High Country Conservation Center. Jennifer Schenk, our executive director, will be presenting. And we also have on the line Aaron Byrne. He is the director of the Summit County Resource Allocation Park. And then behind the scenes, thank you so much to my coworker Christy, who's running that Q&A in the chat. So we work for, well, aside from Aaron, who works for the Summit County Resource Allocation Park, High Country Conservation Center is often abbreviated as HC3. We are an environmental nonprofit that got started in 1976, and that was recycling only. So today, our mission and scope has expanded to include climate action, water conservation, and energy efficiency. That means we help people get behind the wheels of electric vehicles, we help people save water on their lawns, and we help people save money on their energy bills. And of course, waste reduction is still a huge part of our mission and work. We work very, very closely with Aaron and also with Summit County government. So they manage all the recycling infrastructure and operations, and we partner together on education and outreach. So before we kick off, a huge kudos to Summit County and the Summit County Resource Allocation Park, or SCRAP, for their work and their vision. We'll have about 20 or 30 minutes of presentation, and during that time, you can pop your questions into the Q&A feature on Zoom. Once the presentation is complete, we'll call in some of our partners, including additional representatives from Summit County government, as well as some of our local waste haulers. They can help address some of your questions. And I also want to recognize that we receive lots of great questions in the registration process. So thank you all for that. We will attempt to address many of these during the presentation. Um, I would like to keep in mind that we're going to wrap up at 6:30 and we'll be focused on the most popular questions. So if your question does not get answered tonight, we'll include contact information for easy follow-up. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jen.
Hi, everyone. As Rachel said, thank you so much for attending tonight. I'll do my best to slow down the way that I usually talk because of the Spanish translation. So yeah, let me click to the next slide. And, oh, okay. So just to kind of ground us in why we started talking about pay as you throw and why we talk about waste diversion in general in Summit County, I want to bring this back to climate change and what's currently happening in Summit County. I think those of us who have lived here a long time, we see our climate changing around us, right? We see the shorter winters. I mean, it was absolutely lovely that it was 60 degrees all of October. And then it started snowing in November, but that's just not the way that it needs to be working in terms of if we want to have lengthy ski seasons. It was also literally 50 degrees today, and I think it's supposed to be even warmer. So I think we've all seen the shorter winters. Along with the shorter winters comes obviously less water in our rivers, more wildfires in Colorado and across the West. And then in light of that, we have a goal in Summit County across our entire community to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050. And then drilling down a little bit more into waste reduction, we have a community-wide goal to double our recycling rate to 40% by 2035. So of course that means we're currently at about 20%. And what that means is that 80% of the waste that we generate in Summit County is still ending up in the landfill. It's a big problem because our landfill is filling up. What also happens is that related to the greenhouse gas emissions, when organic materials, so things like wood, things like food waste break down in a landfill, they create methane, which is an extremely potent greenhouse gas that's actually 80 times more potent or stronger than carbon dioxide itself. Oh, I want to go back very quickly and just mention that even though back in 2018, if you've lived here since then, you probably know that we passed, the voters of Summit County passed a mill levy that came to be known as Strong Future. And that was a property tax that was passed. That funds recycling in Summit County to the tune of about $2 million or a waste reduction initiative. So most of that money goes to the scrap and then they share it with HC3 to do, again, the education and outreach that we do. We have done some absolutely amazing work with Summit County government. So since Strong Future passed, we've opened the Silverthorne recycling site. We've added food scraps at all of our recycling centers. We've added glass collection across the county, we'll talk about later. We've added carton collection, mattress collection, and we've greatly expanded our marketing and outreach to make sure that the residents and visitors of Summit County understand the recycling guidelines here. But I think what we've come to realize, and the Board of County Commissioners and some other local towns realize, is that like it's not enough. We also need that policy overlay, and that's how pay as you throw began to get discussed. So now I'm going to dive into the program details, which I know is why you all are here. So just to define what may apply to you as a resident, or maybe you're a business owner or manager. So if you have, I would call this a toter or an individual recycling bin in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, like my past colleague, our intern Maggie is standing next to. If you have this individual bin at your home, whether or not you pay for it directly or your homeowners association pays for it, then you will be under the pay as you throw ordinance. And that is mostly what we're going to be focused on tonight, is people who have these individual bins. We will touch on the other component, which is again down here in the lower right. If you have a shared dumpster with your neighbors, whether you're a business or part of a homeowners association, like in a multifamily residence, townhomes, condos, then the universal recycling ordinance is the part of like the component of the ordinances passed by Summit County government that will apply to you. So again, we're not going to get into a ton of detail about that, but I do have one more slide to talk about that. And certainly if we have time, we can field some questions about universal recycling for those shared dumpsters. So in terms of pay as you throw, like where did it come from? Where is it currently working? Pay as you throw is in effect in over 7,500 communities across the United States. So it's not new. It's been in play for 30 plus years. And in fact, these are just Colorado examples. You can obviously see Breckenridge and Frisco are right at the top. So pay as you throw was implemented in Breck and Frisco in 2023. So it went into effect October 2023. And then Summit County government, the Board of County Commissioners adopted pay as you throw officially on September 10th. So not too long ago. And then I just also wanted to throw out that the town of Vale has doubled their recycling rate. They implemented pay as you throw back in 2015, and it took 18 months to 2 years for them to double their recycling rate. I also just want to call out that based on statewide reports that we've seen through the state of Colorado, that essentially the communities that have the highest diversion rate, again, keeping the most out of landfills through recycling and composting, essentially all of those communities have pay as you throw, and most of them have universal recycling in effect. So it truly does work. In terms of pay as you throw, some local results. So we just recently looked at this with the help of Scrap, and what we have seen so far since October 1st of 2023, when it went into effect in Breckenridge and Frisco through 1 year, so through September 30th of 2024, we have seen that single stream recycling, which again is what's picked up at your curb, whether you're a business or a resident, that's what's picked up. It has increased 16% since we've implemented the program. We only track, and that's not just in Frisco and Breckenridge, that's community wide. We actually don't have a way to track that data by town, because if you think about it, like you might live in unincorporated Summit County right outside of Breckenridge town limits. So if your hauler is Waste Management or Timberline, they may have a route where they drive up your street and you're in unincorporated Summit County, and then as they turn onto the next street, it could be in Breck town limits. So there's just really no way for us to track that data town by town. So that makes this number increasing 16% across all of Summit County even more impressive. So we are really happy to see those results. And then in terms of cost savings, I saw a number of questions. I understand that's one of the biggest questions that you all have. What we are seeing in general is that a number of residents are saving up to a third on the cost of their previous trash bills. So like before pay as you throw. Everyone is not saving money. I'm not going to say that they are. If people don't switch, if someone is currently has a 96-gallon trash and doesn't switch and stays with a 96-gallon trash and then adds the recycling, which I'll talk about in a minute as the program details, that person is not going to be saving money. In order to save money, a resident like you all will have to downsize your trash bin. So in terms of how does the program work if you're not familiar with it? So the way that it works is that once the program rolls out with all the waste providers in Summit County, you will have 3 different size bins. So you'll have for trash. So you'll have either the small, in this case, the gray, the medium in the middle, and then on the left is the blue, and that would be the largest bin. They're roughly 32-gallon, 64-gallon, and 96-gallon. You won't see very many 32-gallon bins around town unless you're in Breck or Frisco, because a lot of people have switched to the smaller ones. But the standard size for years and years has either been the middle size or the larger size. So going forward, recycling will now be included. You'll pick your trash size. Smaller will be less money, larger sizes will cost more, and everyone will have recycling included. So you will have a recycling bin at your home if you have curbside trash collection. And there will be one price, we call it bundled pricing, for both recycling and trash service, and that's what you'll see on your bill. Very importantly, you will be able to continue to use your current trash service provider. So all the providers that were operating in Breck and Frisco before pay as you throw are still operating in Breck and Frisco. So again, I think the biggest haulers I can think of are, Waste Management, Timberline, Garbage Gurus, and Summit VIP. So hopefully most of you are using one of those haulers. They are all offering this program. So you can either shop around or continue to use your waste service provider. They will all be doing the same thing. I also want to mention that if you are someone who currently takes your recycling over the free recycling centers, this ordinance is still going to apply to you, meaning you will be paying for recycling and have recycling at your house. And the reason for this is because when we looked at the data, before Breck and Frisco implemented this back in 2022, we found that only 30% of people who have curbside collection in the residential, like with these bins, only 30% of those accounts with our major haulers actually had recycling. And so there are a number of people, even though maybe all of us on this call are avid recyclers, everyone is not recycling. And that 70% is certainly not the 70% who don't have it at their homes. Like, I wish they were, but the data shows like they're not going to the recycling centers. And so we need to give visitors and residents access at their homes. And I truly hope that you find once you have it at your house, that it's going to make your life easier. I've talked to a lot of, my colleagues and friends who live in Breck and Frisco, and they now use single stream at their house and they have found it really convenient. So I hope you find the same and that it actually helps you, and that it helps everyone in Summit have access to recycling. So to do a little bit of a deeper dive, let me just reiterate, this is like a graphic to start at the top of this slide. This is a graphical representation of what we were just looking at on the other slide with the bins, right? So focus on the trash here. You got your small trash size, you got your medium or your large, and it shows you the sizes. Just to remind you what I said a minute ago, everyone will now have recycling at their homes. In terms of the pricing, what's going to happen is that this pay as you throw creates more of a utility model. So for instance, if at my house I'm using less electricity or water than my neighbors, then I am paying less than my neighbors on my power bills or my water bill. And so what pay as you throw does is it creates a very similar model and it rewards people who are recycling more and generating less trash. In terms of the literal pricing and how the ordinance works, and the ordinance is the same in Frisco, Breckenridge, and unincorporated Summit County. So the pricing must increase 80%. So this is your base, right? The small is the base. So when you go up to the next level, the pricing increases 80% to jump to the medium. And then to jump to the large, the haulers are required to have this be the large bin be 160% of the base of the small. And I know that seems a little bit funky. It has to be at least 80% is what the ordinance says. And I know that's a little funky, and you're probably wondering, like, why in the world 80% and where did they come up with that? The data across, again, this has been in place. It is in place in over 7,500 communities across the US. The data has shown that it has to be at least that 80% differential in price in order to really make a difference and incentivize people to downsize their trash. So, if you have over here, you have a large 96-gallon trash, in order for you to be incentivized to go to a smaller, even the medium, like if that's only a $5 price break or a $10 price break to get to the small, then there's really no reason for you to switch, right? So what we're trying to do is encourage people to go to small, whether it's a medium size or a small size, if you're starting up over here at large. If you downsize, you're going to start to recycle more. If you're either not recycling at all, or you're not recycling everything that you could be, then once you start to downsize to a smaller trash bin, then you're going to take out more from your previous trash and put it in the recycling bin. And so that's how the program works. So we'll be reducing trash, we'll be recycling and composting more. And then again, residents who generate less trash are saving more money. And that's helping, not fill up our landfill and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Wildlife resistant bins. I also saw a number of questions about wildlife resistant bins, and we do have some people on the phone more knowledgeable than me about this. Um, but essentially, in the ordinance, it says that all three trash bin sizes will be available as these either bear safe or wildlife resistant bins. So you can certainly ask, Waste Management Timberline, whoever your waste provider is, to provide that, and they will do so. Please know that there is often a rental fee. So if you would like to, and each of the waste providers can respond to that directly, either on this call or if you want to ask your own waste provider. If you, oh yeah, so it said, oh, must be requested. Sorry, I read that wrong. If you are interested in purchasing a bear safe bin, Summit County government currently has a program. I think my colleague Christy is going to paste the link in the chat or in the Q&A with more information, but they currently have a grant program available for unincorporated Summit County residents, and that funding will help you buy a bear safe bin. And I would absolutely encourage you that if you're going to do that, just be sure that the bin will work with your hauler. They can respond directly, but again, it needs to have this little like metal bar that the waste management one does, and it needs to be compatible with their trucks. But I would also just encourage you to maybe not just buy the 96 gallon and think about if you're able to downsize, because once this grant, you need to apply by the end of the year, by the end of 2024, and pay as you throw won't be in effect until the summertime, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So jumping into the deadlines and the program specifically, you can see that in the spring and summer, the waste providers will start to release their pricing to the public. I don't anticipate that that'll happen at exactly the same time for each waste provider. So I would say be a little bit patient with your waste provider. Give them a call, but maybe wait until sometime in 2025. And they will get with you on what their pricing will look like for those three different bin sizes. And then you'll start to really see HC3 ramping up its marketing and outreach on this program so that so that you all know. I mean, there's, I think, just over 50 people on this webinar, 60, but we need to make sure that we get the word out. So you'll start to see a lot more communication from us. And by August 31, that is the deadline for the haulers to get these bins into your hands as residents. So by August 31st, you will definitely have pay as you throw, like the pricing of the bins at your house. Certainly, you're probably going to have it before then. I think some of the haulers will be rolling it out by neighborhoods, and that's a better question for them than me. In terms of the universal recycling component we talked about briefly, that's those shared dumpsters. The milestones for that are a little bit longer because HOAs and businesses they have longer lead times to budget and plan. And if something like a capital project has to happen for an enclosure, we wanted to give everyone plenty of time. So October 1, 2026, half of the homeowners associations and businesses will have that in effect. And then you can see October 1, 27 is when everyone will have that recycling on site for businesses and the shared. Single stream recycling guidelines. So I just want to mention, in case you are not currently recycling at your curb, and this is going to be new to you, even if you recycle at our drop sites now, the guidelines are not changing. So if you already recycle at your house, nothing is changing. But this is what is recyclable in the single stream recycling at the curb. So I think my colleague Christy is going to provide a link with the recycling guidelines, like more if you want more detail. Glass is excluded. It's been excluded from our single stream for a while, and it will continue to be. I think the only other notable thing we get a lot of questions about is cartons. So like a soy milk carton or something like that. That is also not allowed in single stream, but you can see there are tons of materials. And again, the guidelines are not changing. If we get a lot of really specific recycling questions, I don't know if we'll get to all those. We'll do our best tonight. But if you have recycling questions and you either want to talk them through on the phone, they're in-depth questions, give us a call or go to our website. We have tons of information, and we love talking to people about recycling any day of the week, or check out our website for the complete guidelines. In terms of some free ways to downsize in our community, and we've talked to a lot of Breck and Frisco folks who are doing this with great success. We have food scrap recycling at 8 different locations, including all 3 recycling drop sites. We have glass recycling at 16 locations throughout the county, again, including the drop sites. And then we have carton recycling available at 3 different, at the 3 recycling drop sites, which are free. So in terms of resources, I just wanted to talk for a minute on behalf of Summit County government. Um, I know that when this was adopted by Summit County and same with Breck and Frisco, that everyone recognizes that this is a big deal. It's a change for everyone. I mean, it's a change for the waste haulers. It's a lot of effort on their part to roll out a new program. And more importantly, it's a change for you all as residents or HOA or businesses. So huge thank you for contributing to our success as a community. And I know that Summit County government really wants to support you all as residents and businesses. So with that being said, we will have business and multifamily HOA grants. That's for the shared dumpsters or anyone who might have to do an enclosure. We'll have we also have signage on hand and things like that. So just call us. That's like a one-on-one thing. We'll come out, we'll work with you and look at your property individually. And then, and that kind of gets to the second bullet as well. If we need to bring someone, from your hauling company, Waste Management or Timberline, or we need to get Summit County community development staff involved, we will do that. And we will work one-on-one with all of you to make sure we figure it out for those individual situations. And then we also, through Summit County government, we will have some financial assistance available for residents. And the thing that I know we're going to have in place is that when you decide to downsize from a 96 gallon, the large size, if you want to go from the large to a medium or a small, Summit County government is going to pay for that bin transition. Because of course it costs the waste provider money to come deliver that bin to you, and it would cost them money to deliver a recycling bin if you don't already have recycling. And so Summit County will be providing that funding so that you as a resident don't have to pay for that. And it further incentivizes you to downsize your trash. And then finally, Summit County government is working on a program for people who have a financial hardship, like an income qualified person who does see an increase in their bills. So if someone's unable to downsize and their bills go up and they meet some income qualifications, that program we anticipate will be rolled out next spring or summer as the waste providers actually send out pay-as-you-throw pricing and bills start to come out, since we don't quite know what the costs are yet. And then my one slide on universal recycling, again, for those of you who have the shared dumpsters that you share with your neighbors or your businesses, what's going to happen here is that recycling service is going to be required, like recycling collection. It can be in your garage or whatever is convenient for residents or, employees of your business to access. I just want to call out again, the really cool thing about this program and the reason it's called universal recycling is because it's going to give access to it's going to give recycling access to everyone in Summit County. And it shouldn't be understated like what a big deal that is. We get calls weekly at HC3, whether it's from a visitor or a resident who lives in a condo complex saying, "Hey, I don't have recycling. How can I get it?" And it's just too much to ask a visitor to drive to a recycling site. And honestly, it's too much to ask some of our residents as well. I mean, they may not have time or a vehicle to get to a recycling site. So this program is going to give recycling access to everyone. For those businesses that do have a liquor license, glass recycling will be required, like glass collection on site. And then there will be a requirement for under universal recycling for business and HOAs that 50% so the recycling volume will need to be 50% of the trash. So you can't have like an 8-yard trash dumpster and then like one little 96 gallon toter. So I guess just to like drive it home with a real quick example, for an HOA that has a 6-yard trash dumpster that's picked up weekly, that HOA would need to have the equivalent of a 6-yard recycling dumpster that's picked up every other week. Trash is picked up weekly, recycling's picked up every other week. So that would equate to that 50% number where you're getting a critical mass of recycling, like you're actually trying and getting as much recycling as you can from residents and businesses. And that leads us to Q&A, and I'm going to hand it back over to Rachel, who I think is going to moderate our Q&A.
Great. Thank you. And great job again to everyone who submitted questions during registration. I invite you to submit more now. It looks like we already answered a lot of questions, but Jen, we do have a couple of universal recycling questions. And one of the things that came up, I know you mentioned glass. Is glass, are HOAs required to recycle glass?
No, they are not. So HOA, and the only requirement under the Universal Recycling Ordinance is if a business has a liquor license. I will add, even though it's not required, that I believe most of the waste providers are now offering toters at HOAs, and I think we've seen a lot of those in Frisco and Brack, like residential HOAs that have added glass collection next to their single stream, and they've had great success, but it is not a requirement unless the business has a liquor license.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. That was one thing that came up. And I see that my coworker Christy is adding some folks to be able to comment because we did have a question from a resident about timing of bins and timing of you, and this is for pay as you throw, about when their smaller bins would become available and when pricing would become available. So I would invite right now any of the waste haulers that we have on the line. I see we have Jeffrey Brill and Curtis Gardner. Perhaps they could comment on timing of bins and what you're thinking. And you might not know that right now, but if one of you or all of you are available to unmute yourselves and give us information on timing, I invite you to do so now.
Good evening. My name is Curtis Gardner with WM. So yeah, to answer the question, kind of what you just alluded to, but we're still in development of our pricing, and that'll become available on the timeline that was talked about on the screen, probably late spring of 2025, and then cart deliveries will happen sometime after that, well in advance of the effective date of the ordinance.
Great. Thank you, Curtis, for that clarification. And I would invite anyone else, maybe who, any of the haulers on the line who wants to comment on that.
Yes, this is Jeff Brill with Garbage Gurus. And we built our business around pay as you throw 3 years ago. And so we are fully ready to implement the same pricing structure for pay as you throw that we have in Frisco and Breckenridge in unincorporated Summit County now to those who find it advantageous. So for those who still want trash only service and find it more advantageous in unincorporated Summit County to continue on that path until it's fully implemented, those are the options that they'll have.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. And then I see I have Amy as well. I don't know if you want to comment on timing. Like I said, I know August, folks are ready for their little bins, but any thoughts on timing from a Timberline perspective?
From Timberline's, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, from Timberline's perspective, we are fully committed. As far as timing, absolutely, we will be ready in August. Anyone that would be interested in switching sooner, we are fully capable and ready to help them switch. Also, we just want to add that we don't just stop with pay as you throw. We are fully and ready committed to add compost and glass as well. So I don't want people to just get caught in pay as you throw as the only option, because there are lots of options.
Great, thank you. And that's a fantastic note. So bear with me while I scroll through the great questions that we have. But that did come up. So as in terms of recycling more than single stream. So one question that we had, and this is more for universal recycling. I think Jen, I'll call on you for this one. So you noted that there's a 50% requirement. So for the HOAs that need to add recycling, it needs to be 50% of their trash. Can that include compost and glass recycling, or is that 50% single stream?
Yes, so that's a great question. And certainly it has come up in Breck and Frisco. Even talking about some of the larger accounts like Breckenridge Ski Area. I remember having this conversation. And I think by ordinance, and I should be careful because I didn't write the ordinance and I don't work for Summit County government, but I think by ordinance, it says recycling. But I feel confident in knowing that the intent is absolutely those divertible materials. So absolutely, I believe that composting, and I see Aaron has his video back on. So yeah, I think certainly composting and and glass for sure is like even by ordinance recycling. But yeah, those divertible materials just need to add up to 50%. Does that sound right to you, Aaron?
That's correct, Jen. Yep, good
Thanks,
answer.
Aaron.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you guys. Great question. And then back to those resources. So do residents need to do anything to get those bin fees waived when they get their little bins swapped out?
You mean when they get their big bin swapped out?
Yes, when they transition from a
Yeah.
large to that 32-gallon bin, what do they need to do
They
to make sure those fees get waived?
Thank you for that question. It is Summit County government's plan to work directly with the haulers on that so that there will be no fee to residents. So residents don't need to worry about it. Just rest assured that if you are going from a large bin to a small bin and or adding recycling, if you don't currently have it, then those fees should be taken care of and you don't need to do anything.
Great. Thank you. And that's certainly very helpful. And I don't know if I see Adrienne on the line at this moment in time, but if we can either get her or someone from Summit County government, I do have a question about bear safe bins. Folks want to know, how do they buy a new one? So is there someone perhaps from, I don't know. Maybe we can come back to that one. Oh, there we go. I see her popping on now. So Adrienne, can you talk us through that one? If folks want to take advantage of that Bear Safe Bin program, how do they go about buying a new one?
So in terms of Bear Safe, and thank you, Christy, for putting that in the chat. The timing is a little bit rough with pay as you throw, right? Like we had this really great program for reimbursing folks for buying a wildlife resistant bin, but now we have this new ordinance that's coming into play in 25. There are a list of approved bins, and also you can work with your hauler on this. We should hopefully, haulers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we should have access to smaller, below 96 gallon wildlife resistant trash cans. And then also, while the intent was to run the grant program through 24, there is the possibility that we can make extensions into 2025. Of course, when the money runs out, the money runs out, but we're not as concerned about the annual deadline as we were before. So that's kind of my short answer on how you can go about applying for that.
Fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, check out that link in the chat if you are interested in taking advantage of that program. Let's see. So this is another bin swap out question. And Jen, whether you want to jump in or if any of the haulers want to jump in, what do residents do if they want to downsize from a 96-gallon trash? What do they do with the old 96-gallon trash container?
This is Jeff with Garbage Gurus. And so, I mean, we are happy to help distribute the bins if people no longer need the larger bin. First of all, it can be used for recycling. So we don't care what size your recycling bin is. The trash bin is the only bin size that actually matters for our pricing structure. So somebody could have a 32-gallon cart for trash and a 96-gallon cart for recycling. If you don't want the larger bin, we would be happy to pick it up and distribute it to somebody that would be interested in using it.
Great, thank you. And then if folks purchased was there anyone else who wanted to comment before I started talking about folks who maybe purchased their own trash container?
I can comment about this
Thanks.
for Timberline. We are more than happy. Again, we really are pricing based on your trash size. So if you want to use your larger bin for recycling, that's great. You can keep it for recycling. If you do not have room for the 96-gallon bin and don't want it, we are happy to take it. If it's in terrible shape and it needs to be removed, we can do that. But if there's any chance that we can clean it and reuse it for someone, hopefully they can use it for recycle. We will clean it and redistribute it.
Great. That's excellent.
This is Jeff with Garbage Gurus again. Just we also do sell bear carts. So if anybody is interested in a bear cart, we do sell them at a shop at our website.
Great. Thank you. And when it comes to, if folks purchase their own 96-gallon trash container, maybe they don't have space to repurpose it for their recycling bin. Aaron, could you comment on whether or not that's something that could be potentially recycled at the scrap if somebody wanted to recycle a 96-gallon trash container that they had purchased?
Thanks, Rachel. Yes. So we have the capability. Currently, we're storing toters of all sizes right now. And we'll find a market. There's several opportunities for us to get those recycled. So once we get enough of the totes at scrap, we will get those recycled. So if anybody has any questions about recycling totes individually, please reach out to HC3 and they'll get us in contact with the scrap team, get you in contact with the scrap team, and we'll make that happen.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. And HC3 is here to offer help with that as well. So many of you know that you can reach out to HC3 Monday through Friday on the phone with questions. Our phone number is 970-668-5703. And I did see a couple of questions about joining the Zoom late. We will be posting this online. In the coming week. So take a look for that. If you haven't yet, sign up for HC3's website, which you can do, or sign up for HC3's newsletter, which you can do on our website at highcountryconservation.org. And there's a newsletter tab there where you'll see us. We can send that out in the newsletter. Let's see. I'm going to keep going through the questions here. So this is a universal recycling question. So I'll throw this one out to a hauler, and it sounds like the person asking this has a good start on this. So the question is, how does a condo or HOA get a recycling account and a container? Do we need to just call haulers for pricing? And that's exactly right. So you're going to want to call those folks and get that service added to your HOA.
Can I chime in?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
I think the thing with a large HOA or any HOA is to absolutely go through your property management company, because you personally are not paying for that individually. You're using your HOA to pay for that. So contact your property manager, let them know that's what you're interested in. If you're in an area where it's required, it's going to happen either way. But just definitely be in communication with your HOA manager.
Great. Thank you so much. That's a great clarification for folks to work through their HOA manager. Thanks, Amy. Let's see. So I think I'm going to invite my colleague Christy, the one who's working behind the scenes, to maybe talk a little bit more about this one. So this is related to universal recycling, and it's a person who's writing in that their HOA has a lot of short-term rentals, and they're looking for ideas on how to do a good job with recycling. Christy, do you want to talk a little bit more deeply about the services that HC3 offers in terms of helping HOAs?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we have a lot of educational resources available. What I like to do is work with the individual HOAs one-on-one, but generally speaking, we try to make sure that within short-term rental units, there's clear signage indicating what is and isn't recyclable, as well as helping provide some sort of bin or little trash can or something that people who are visiting can collect their recyclables in, given that they won't have something with them while they travel, right? So there's a lot of different things we can work on together to help make sure the visitors are playing by the same rules.
Great, thank you. And I know you've seen a lot of folks reduce their contamination or get better at recycling after working together and partnering on solutions. So one of the questions I would love to throw out to the haulers, because my guess is that this varies per company, is curbside recycling pickup on a different day than trash pickup?
This is Jeff with Garbage Gurus. No recycling, single stream recycling is collected on the same day as trash service. We also do provide a glass only recycling service where we can pick up your glass as well, in addition to food scraps for composting too.
And for WM, residential trash and recycling is picked up on the same day as well.
This is Amy from Timberline, and our trash and recycle is picked up on the same day. We also offer glass and we offer food scrap recycling as well. Just to go back to your previous discussion about short-term rentals, one thing that I would suggest is to have more education in the individual units. One thing that we see is people are contaminating, but by the time they get down to the recycling bin, they're not realizing that they've already contaminated and they're throwing it away like at that time. So the sooner they can be educated on when the contamination is happening would be very beneficial. So anytime we can educate in the individual units before it's taken out would be very helpful.
That is a fantastic point, Amy. Thank you so much. And that is something that when Christy talked about those site visits that we do with HOAs, whether or not it's a large amount of short-term rentals, the signage and things like that, that's something that Christy and our organization does offer. So I think, Jen, I don't know if you can advance the slides, because I think we do have some contact information just to make sure folks can have that if they do want to reach out about support. If anyone has any more pay-as-you-throw or universal recycling questions, please pop that in the chat. We are getting close to 6:30, but since we do have a couple of more minutes, I figure, Aaron, maybe if you're willing to help answer some general recycling questions, like what is happening to our compost or the food scraps that we put into at the drop-off centers.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. So all of the food scraps collected at the recycle centers under the subscription service through HC3, all that material is getting composted at Scrap. Scrap has a class 3 permitted CDPHE approved design pad, and we compost all that material for sales and distribution. That material in the wintertime is processed in windrows, and then we're able to create a finished process tested through the U.S. Composting Council and the state, and then we sell that material back to the community. So anyways, kudos to the community right now for just seeing the numbers increasing at the drop-off centers for subscribers. We've seen that those numbers more than triple over the last couple years, and it's just very encouraging. That's just a huge component in our landfill as far as diversion to reduce, Jen mentioned earlier, to reduce the methane gas in our landfill in Summit County. That really is a big contributor. And the more organics we get out of the waste stream and through our composting facility is going to be a beneficial use for everybody. So I just thank you for everything that you're all doing. And if you have any questions or ever want to come up and see the site and do a tour, let us know and we'd be happy to show you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Great stuff. And I will give you a little pro tip slash sneak peek is that if you are enrolled in the free food scrap drop-off program, we typically partner with the scrap to do a compost giveaway in spring every May. So sign up, downsize your trash, and keep your eyes open for the compost giveaway and get a little taste of how good that stuff works on your plants and on your lawn. Let's see. So, Aaron, I got a couple more for you coming through. This is just broadly related to contamination. So, folks are wondering, what happens if things are too contaminated? And this was a question that we did see in the registration. If you're willing to just broadly address whether that contamination's coming through single stream or whether it's happening at the drop-off centers, what do you do?
So no contamination, folks. We want clean recycling. So looking at the question regarding the Silverthorne drop-off center, we have seen increase in some contamination at the drop sites. The material that comes to our facilities, we're able to process that material. Our staff, we have dedicated things that they need to be doing to process this material, but separating and and pulling out the contamination is something that we don't want to do. We get penalized for all the contamination coming into the single stream, coming into the MRF material recovery facility, our facilities, from the recycling public drop-off center. So it's really important that whether it's self-policing, more education that we continue to do at the sites, we need to make sure that these bins are free from that contamination. So the material that comes in, obviously we do pull that out. We would prefer allocating those resources to other tasks, but we pull it out. And so we can, ship that material to the processor clean, and that so we don't get penalized. So it's very important that we know what we're putting in the bins. When in doubt, throw it out. If it's contaminated and not recyclable, it should not be going into the bin. So, and again, we offer tours at Scrap, and please contact HC3. We'd be happy to share more in detail what we do up there and how we process that material, and keep up the good work, folks. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. So the logical follow-up question to that, right? And given the timing with 4 minutes left, I'll kind of blow through some HC3 programs, but the idea is what are we doing about those non-recyclable items, whether it's plastics or something else? Here at HC3, we bring our staff to the recycling drop-off centers to help educate people on what's accepted. That takes place weekly throughout summer. And then we also go out on the streets when folks set recycling bins out for pickup. We leave them notes. We lift the lid on the recycling bin. It's called oops tagging. And we'll leave them a friendly note to say, hey, glass you can drop off at the glass station, or don't include berry containers, or great job. So we do go out and do that on the streets. And I know a lot of the haulers are working on some really exciting programs to help better identify contamination. So I would open it up now to any of the haulers who might like to share what they're doing to combat contamination or trash and recycling.
This is Jeff with Garbage Gurus. And so, yes, we are very communicative with our customers. So we do have similar slips that we leave behind as the HC3 folks to basically, re-educate. A lot of people don't know that they're putting contamination into the recycling bin. So, it just it's repetition. You got to hammer it home. You got to get eyeballs on the right information. So we direct people to our website where we go into more depth about what the recycling rules are in Summit County. We have the slips that we leave behind. We do reach out with text messages as well to just really, get people on board and follow what the rules are here in Summit County.
Curtis with WM. So a couple different things I want to mention. First is our Recycle Right program, and that's really our resident education program intended to keep recycling basic and really use pictures and really easy ways to let residents know what is and isn't recyclable to ensure that what they're putting in their bin is actually going to be recycled and isn't contamination. Kind of on the back end, on the hauling side, we utilize a technology called Smart Truck. Smart Truck takes pictures of the bin and then a video as the bin is dumped into the hopper. And with that technology, we can identify instances of contamination in a recycling bin. From there, the resident is sent a notice to let them know that, hey, we saw contamination in a recycling bin, and it's really a way to correct behavior, right? And the pictures are usually the most effective, and so we kind of have an education program on the front end, and then a technology that's used on the hauling side.
Exciting stuff. There's stuff that we get excited about at HC3.
And this is Amy from Timberline, and we are also utilizing picture technology to educate people on contamination. We are also reaching out, especially to our larger clientele with recycling, about their contamination. We transmit pictures, we educate them, and we are also directing a lot of people to HC3. You guys are a great resource, and we are continuing to direct people to reach out to you with questions and just to help guide and facilitate what should and should not be recycled.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you guys. And I think now that we're wrapping up on time here, the short story is that this is a partnership. We're all working together to do this right. And if you have any questions that weren't answered or you want to chat with us, feel free to give us a call or an email. Our website's on the screen as well as that email. And with that, it's 6:30, and I think that concludes our evening. So thank you all so much for being with us tonight and asking great questions. Thanks to all the panelists who chimed in. We really appreciate you all, and let's keep working together to do better.